Hello, 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 and welcome to Security Live. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide lead of the Security and Identity Partners at AWS, and we are here to talk about security with the world's top cybersecurity providers. I'm not alone. I'm here with my favorite co-host, Margot. I don't say that lightly. My favorite co-host, Margot.
Hey there, Brian. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's so cool to be back because I was off nearly all over the summer. My name is Margot Cronin, and I'm a security and compliance specialist SA with AWS. And yeah, I get to work with our partners on customer site, which is really cool, but it's so enjoyable then to get to chat to them on the show.
Awesome. And so thank you all for joining and welcome to the show, everybody, for if you're listening. Before we jump in any further, if you are on the show, we want to hear where you are from. So put that in chat. We'd love to see where people are coming from. I like to think everybody is within a 10-mile radius of me, but of course that's not true. So we want to see where you're coming from. And number two, if you have any questions, put them in chat. We will bring those questions forward. This is actually a live show, a true live show, and we will answer your questions on the show. Make sure you put all of that in chat. All right. Without further ado, we are joined on this show by the wonderful guest coming from Fastly. We've got Liam and David from Fastly. Liam, David, thank you so much for being here with us. Yes, awesome. Please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Hi, I'm Liam Mayron. I manage some of our security products at Fastly, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, and hey everyone, my name is David King. I work on our security product marketing team, kind of Liam's other side of the coin on this side of the house.
That's so cool. And can you tell us a little bit about Fastly? Because I know actually many of our customers use Fastly as part of their application security and protection. But tell us a little bit more. Somebody who's coming across Fastly for the first time, why would they be thrilled when they open up what they see?
Yeah, Fastly is an edge cloud platform, and so we do a lot of things on this platform. We make content faster. We also make it more secure, and that's kind of the focus of David and me. So, application security, edge compute, observability, and of course, content acceleration are some of the things that we're known for.
And you're both in product management, is that right? As part of your...
Liam handles the product management. I handle the product marketing. So he works with the engineers to get it built, and then I work with the other teams to get it off the shelf and into the hands of all the wonderful folks who are on this show and beyond.
Awesome. You guys are the dynamic duo. We've got everything covered right here. This is like the perfect audience. This is great. So go ahead, Margo. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, if anybody on LinkedIn or Twitch or YouTube, where I think we're streaming today, want to ask questions on product management, perhaps, or to Fastly about Fastly application security, they can join us in the show and put questions in the chat stream, which is that way, actually, on my monitor.
Exactly. Oh, and but Margo, we almost forgot like one of the most important elements of the show. Before we go any further, we have an acronym alert. So we have a rule within AWS. There it is. So if anybody says an acronym without defining what it is, that little thing shows up. We put a coin in the swear jar, the like virtual proverbial swear jar. And so I promise, like we were saying just before the show, either Margo or I will probably be the first one to break the rule. I'm usually the first to call somebody out and then immediately break the rule. So just a heads up before we jump into this. And I say that specifically because the topic of the day, as I understand it, is DDoS, distributed denial of service. I'm safe. We can all say DDoS now. Awesome. And DDoS. Yeah, exactly. What's new in DDoS? What's happening with these types of attack and defense? What's going on here?
Yeah, a lot. It's been a busy year for DDoS, and yeah, thank you. I'm safe to say that that acronym. We brought some data, but generally we're seeing increasing trends in DDoS. Attacks that are shorter lived and maybe not going just for volume, but more to be a kind of persistent threat that flies under the radar. wallet attacks, trying to increase customers' cloud spend with via DDoS is something that we're also seeing a lot more of this year.
So
can you?
wallet attacks. Sorry, go ahead, Margot.
Yeah, you talked over you there, Brian. Sorry about that. I was about to say, because I think that was really interesting what you said there, Liam. Like you said, like a movement from volumetric attacks to more application level, right? Or, attacking a customer at that level. So can you expand on that threat?
Yeah, I think it's for us, the way we view DDoS, of course, there's those huge volumetric spikes and massive attacks that are intended to disable infrastructure. But what we see more and more of are the attacks that are not just going for volume, but trying to slow down access or really get through defenses to an origin to try to raise the victim's costs.
Oh, interesting. So the traditional approach, what I'm hearing you say, Liam, is like shotgun blast. I'm going to throw a ton of data at like an endpoint, a publicly accessible like IP or device or something, with the intent of like tipping it over, right? Crashing the system, either like taking down the application, the web application firewall, the WAF, or something behind it, in order to completely shut down service. That's like the traditional model. And now you're saying it's low and slow. So it's like it's a slow burn of data coming at the target for the purpose of either slowly degrading the service or increasing costs. Can you tell me how does that work on the increasing cost side?
Yeah, so either low and slow or smaller but very sharp bursts, right? And when those get through, right, on the customer side, maybe they're not interrupted, but now their compute costs, their hosting costs are higher due to this undesired attack traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Imagine like 10 to 15 years ago when everyone was still operating on-prem, like the likelihood that you could knock someone offline when they're on-prem, far higher, right? They weren't necessarily built to absorb these massive inbound spikes. But with everyone moving into the cloud, like AWS, for example, like the likelihood you take AWS offline, let's call it next to zero, right? And so it's forced attackers to think about, how do I still hurt the victim or the target, right? And I think application DDoS is where Fastly has seen a ton of different attacks coming through. Like Liam said, both these wallet attacks and these like really big spiky ones.
That's super interesting. And I love, David, I will slide like the $5 bill across the table for just kind of roughly mentioning the security of the cloud, right? That traditional infrastructure being static, it gets to a point and it shuts down, right? But this kind of like serverless elastic, cloud compute has the ability to scale up and down when these attacks come in. So the benefit is that if the shotgun kind of approach of data like comes in, these DDoS attacks come in, your infrastructure is going to scale to absorb and resume services. And it sounds, Liam, what I'm hearing you saying, it sounds like, okay, now we can't tip it over, but we can incur a cost as infrastructure scales up on the target side.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, with Fastly, we block attacks as far away from our customers' infrastructure as possible, all the way on like the edge of our edge.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. Is it like you sit in front and like you're kind of this giant great wall of awesomeness that stops those things? I mean, how does that work?
I like that phrasing. I'll probably use it again. The great wall of awesomeness. Yeah, we are infrastructure that sits in front of customers' infrastructure, including on AWS, with points of presence all over the world. And so any traffic destined for our customers will go through Fastly's infrastructure first, so we can take care of all the malicious stuff before it impacts further down.
That sounds super simple. Are there agents? Is it just route through Fastly? What does that look like in terms of lift for customers that are using your guys' offerings?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to use Fastly. Most of our customers use it via DNS. Right? So the update their DNS, and now all of those requests are flowing through Fastly. For some of our security products, there are agent options as well.
Are there common mistakes you're seeing your customers make that have kind of enabled these low and slow and change in attacks? Or is it with the advent of AI? I told you I'd be the first person to use an acronym.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think there's two components there. One thing that is really essential is automated detection, automated mitigation. So many of these attacks are so short-lived that once you detect them, the attack's long done, but the damage is done. So that's a really important part of defense. AI is interesting. We're addressing AI threats in a few ways. So earlier this year, Fastly launched a product called AI Bot Management, specifically focused on how you handle scrapers, AI agents trying to get your content. It's different for each enterprise. Some of them really want to be included. Many of them do not. And that's why management is important there.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah,
also worth considering. AI has really lowered the threshold for attackers, right? I was playing around in my favorite LLM the other day, and I said, hey, let's pretend for a second that I want to send 1 billion requests to my favorite site. This is my site, LLM. Don't worry, I'm not doing anything sketchy. And it said, okay, well, as long as you're not doing anything sketchy, here's a script. You can do it yourself, right? So the threshold is incredibly low at this point. Anyone can get in and create these really dynamic scripts that can avoid detection if you're using static detections. And so it really reinforces the need for an automatic solution that's really adapting to the world around us, right?
I'm going to ask you a question, if it's okay, that I get asked a lot by customers when we talk about this in AWS, and I'd be interested as well as because we shared these experiences with our customers, and something I get asked a lot, which I think is a great question, is do you share this intelligence then with the wider community? Because you obviously then see a lot, right? And you're out there at the perimeter, you're on the edge, and you probably have visibility before, let's say, pretty much lots of other players. Is there a mechanism where you share this?
It's one of the things that I really enjoy about being at Fastly is the visibility we have into the portion of the internet that we see. David, maybe you want to talk a bit about our DDoS reports that we share.
Yeah, definitely. So for the last year, every month I've been painstakingly crawling through all of the data on DDoS that we see at Fastly. And I've been releasing these reports that detail like who's getting attacked, what are the industries being attacked, what times are attacks coming in, where are they coming in, where are these attackers located, or where are these like sources of the attacks, right? When we were thinking about the security landscape, a lot of the vendors do an incredible job of doing like really incredible annual reports that are massive and they give so much information. There's also the quarterly ones, right? But if we imagine they come out 4 a year or 5 a year, there's still 6, 7, 8 months out of the year where security teams are kind of left in the dark from these vendors, right? And so one of our goals at Fastly was, hey, how can we highlight in really brief reports what's going on in the industry so that way security professionals and platform engineers, et cetera, they can really fine tune their security posture with whatever Fastly is seeing. And so with that in mind, I actually do have a few slides of kind of the most interesting insights that we've grabbed over the last year. And I would love to share them with the group. Obviously, this isn't a sales pitch or anything like that. But me, I'm an incredibly visual learner. And so talking through these attacks and what we're seeing, for me, always lands best if I can see it and I can digest it. So the first one that we'll take.
I was going to say, sorry to talk over you, but this is landing really well in the chat, and there's some questions coming in, which Brian and I will love to as you go through it. But one of them is, are there any trends that are surprising you in the reports? And I think that's what you're about to show us here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so let's take a look at this first one, right? This is all of the application DDoS attack requests that Fastly has seen over the last year, right? We're going to come out with our September report here in a couple of days. In fact, it's a reminder to me that I need to start pulling the data and working on it. But what we'll see is that every line on this chart represents billions of requests that Fastly has identified as part of a DDoS attack, right? Obviously, there are some really small ones in January. In fact, in January, we saw billions of attack requests every day, but the scale of this graph has gotten so large that it doesn't show anymore, which is wild. But when we think about trends, take a look at June and August, right? Those three massive spikes, the three that we've seen the largest this year.
Yep.
If I was to call out one trend from this graph, it's that attackers have a ton of power at their disposal. What we're seeing in those three spikes are concerted attacks on a single Fastly customer. Can't go into the details of who it is, but what I can say is that all of them were like enterprise, like really, really massive global companies. And those spikes are bigger than what we saw on whole days throughout the year, right? And so as we think about protecting ourselves, like there is a ton of power at disposal for attackers. And I dare say this is more than a lot of on-prem services they can absorb themselves, right? They need to be in the cloud, they need solutions. There's more to this than just trying to kind of protect yourself, right?
I blame kids. That to me just exactly says I'm going into summer break. I'm ready, and like I'm just, here we go. We're gonna start the summer off, and then they're mad that they're going back to school. And one last attack, as summer wraps up. That's my analysis. Consulting in this one's free, guys. You can
Okay.
you can wrap this one up. Yep,
I'll pull you in for
solved
the
it.
next one.
You'll send your bill. There's another question from Ralph, if I can read this out. So Ralph is saying hi from Peru, and he's at a university, and he's just giving us some visibility into what they're experiencing. He's saying they're experiencing small scale attacks, and they seem to be on weekends. And they see on weekends we're seeing phishing attempts, during weekdays micro attacks, and they're becoming increasingly precise and varied in pattern. And he says it seems to feel like it might be experiments to fine tune an AI. Is that the kind of trend you're seeing as well? Is that?
So what's really interesting, and actually matches what Brian said, we definitely see patterns in attacks across the year. We see a summer break, and we also see during the week. We can see working hours there. And David, maybe you want to bring that one up.
Yeah, let's skip forward a couple. Back in May, we took a look at what were the hotspots as far as UTC time goes across the entire week, right? I think the first thing that you'll see is no matter what hour or what day you look at, attacks are bountiful, right? There's no point where someone is not receiving or not seeing an attack. But interestingly enough, there is a bit of a hotspot window, right? If you look between like Thursday and Friday, between the hours of like 1400, so like 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. UTC, it gets really, really dark here, right? And so for defenders, right, let's think about that time globally, right? If you're in Los Angeles during this period, this is like 7 a.m., maybe an early wake up. My wake up this morning for the show, not bad, right? Totally doable. If you're in New York, not bad at all, right? It's 10 a.m. when the attack starts. Middle of your day, you just had your first coffee. But as we shift further and further east, let's think about like Tokyo. Tokyo saw these attacks at 11 p.m., right? They worked overnight until 5 a.m. to stop them. If these attacks landed in Sydney, even worse, right? It's 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And so attacks are coming in at all times. And what we're actually thinking about looking at for one of our next reports is looking at the customers like HQ or their location versus the time they were attacked, right? And investigating, hey, are attackers intentionally targeting you during off hours when you're going to get a page in the middle of the night and you're probably not on the top of your game? Probably where we're going to look at going next.
Right. So we've always talked about like the Christmas morning attack, right? And there's history of massive, I'm not going to say any names, there are history of massive DDoS attacks that have happened on Christmas morning, shutting down humongous organizations, right? And so it seems like the history of this is, okay, well, I have to have somebody that's like always on call, like always by their phone, always on the laptop. And then we got into this like follow the sun model. Right now I have to have a security operations center response team in North America, in Europe, in Asia, so that somebody, it's always like the middle of their day. But even that is transforming, right? Now we're seeing, are you seeing more of a need for automated response and like AI response, artificial intelligence response to be able to like help subsidize whenever these attacks happen? I mean, what are you seeing on how we address this?
Yeah, what we're still seeing is the kind of well-established guidance of defense in depth and a variety of defenses. It applies now more than ever. So we've been talking about DDoS mitigation, but there's different types of attacks, right? You need a WAF and bot management and an automated solution, particularly for short-lived attacks or those slow attacks. And in some cases, you may need a human on call for those really large events that can require extended mitigation. So um, yeah, really requires a variety of approaches to have a comprehensive defense.
Okay, so like not there is no one size fits all. There is no I'm still looking for the magic, what is it, the silver bullet, that's just gonna fix all of our problems. Um, how do if we've got like I mean, we've got people that are watching this show that are like either I am that tier one analyst, I am the engineer, I am the architect that has to like figure out what does this look like? How do we know what is the right tool for the job when it comes to specifically to our perimeter protections?
Mhm. Part of that answer is really specific to your enterprise's needs, right? That can vary depending on the nature of your business, the vertical you're in, how you interact with your customers. So I can't give a blanket response. Threats that are really broad, volumetric, or DDoS mitigation. Threats that are tailored to your business, bot management makes a lot of sense there. WAF, for threats versus specific technology stacks or vulnerabilities. Um, it will come down to what goals the enterprise is trying to achieve. Are you trying to block content scrapers, or are you trying to welcome in price bots? There's different approaches there.
What are the
Um,
most common mistakes you see customers make? I mean, anecdotally, recently, I had a situation with a customer where there was a little bit of an escalation, a bit of panic, as like they were experiencing what they believed to be a volumetric attack. Actually, what it was kind of a problem with requirements mixed with architecture, because they had built a gamification app, like a spin the wheel kind of thing, and it just proved to be incredibly popular. And what they had used in background, and kind of Brian's earlier point about leveraging things like serverless, they had actually implemented their architecture in such a manner that it wasn't scaling. So it actually turned out to be actually quite a nice session, because we got to talk about serverless and all the benefits of cloud, where they didn't have to worry about this. And it was definitely understanding their requirements. And that scenario was the issue, and actually understanding how popular not so much the product, but the gamification that they put in front of it would be. What for you are the most common problems you see out there?
I really like that gamification example, because a rush of visitors to your web properties is often great. Like that's your
Yeah.
goal. It's a wonderful moment, and you don't want to disrupt that. And that's actually how Fastly has built our DDoS mitigations solution, to actually make sure that we don't block those types of spikes. It kind of reminded me of another example with coupon codes that we had with one of our customers, that they were very popular. um,
Sure.
and we see it in a number of places. There's in terms of mistakes, one of them is a wrong tool or misattributing attacks. I think it also ties into the gamification example, but um, something may look like a volumetric spike, but actually be um, uh, could be something like a search engine scraper, for example, an LLM agent that may not necessarily merit being handled the same way as a volumetric spike. Another is, um, being aware of, in terms of DDoS and volumetric attacks, those first few seconds, where a lot of damage can occur, and not having a solution in place to really handle that. And I think the third is the balance between an adaptive solution, one that looks at the traffic coming in, versus static rules, static blocks, and we actually have another chart to show you about this. David, if you want to bring it up, the one with IP addresses and their frequency.
And while
Yeah.
David is doing that, I'll call you out, Liam, because you used LLM, so you're buying beers after the show.
I did. Large language model.
I'm in.
There you go. I still want my beer.
Yeah, and I think this one's really interesting, right? So every day, our solution, Fastly DDoS Protection, is automatically creating rules to stop a variety of DDoS attacks on customers, right? And so one of the things we looked at back in August was, hey, how many unique IPs are observed in rules? What we found is that in August, the vast majority of IPs that were involved in blocks, they only show up once, right? And so as we think about mistakes, or opportunities is probably a better way to phrase it for all the folks who are out there listening, I think oftentimes we get in a place where we're creating rules where we're using IP as part of it, right? And if you look at this chart, you're really creating a game where you're playing whack-a-mole, right? You're jumping from one IP, stopping it, bouncing the next, stopping, banging, 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 banging. It's all you do all day, right? The data tells us that DDoS attacks are also often used as a distraction, right? And so while you were spending time creating rules to stop these individual IPs, attackers were sneaking in and doing even more nefarious and more target attacks on you that you were too busy to stop, right? And so as we think about kind of the need for adaptive and automatic protection, it really starts here, right? Because ideally, we're using those IPs as part of the rules. But if individual humans were doing that, that's a ton of time, right? In perimeter security, application security, it's one piece of a much, much, much larger puzzle that I think everyone can agree continues to get larger as we add chatbots to our sites and all this other extra different attack surfaces, right? And so this was a unique example of just like how many IPs we're observing in roles. And on the flip side of it, on the 5% side, we found that the worst offending IP was one that I believe attacked over 40 different customers within the month, over like 150 something attacks. Like instead of just kind of going low and slow using this IP and maybe coming back later in subsequent months, they went for the scorched earth approach, right? Where they probably knew, hey, this IP is going to get blocked everywhere and anywhere. In fact, I saw it on like a dozen different third-party abuse sites. But that doesn't mean for the month that they couldn't cause massive damage and then find a new IP to restart with next month, right?
Absolutely. I remember I had a customer one time that wanted to take every known bad geolocation and bad IP and block it across all of their firewalls and WAFs and everything else. And it was like, you're trying to block the internet at this point. Just block everything and only accept, traffic from what you want. But you're saying, let's look at the behavior. Let's look at the actual activities rather than like threat intelligence platforms or tips are great for other things. But maybe here it's like whack-a-mole and the proactive approach is just too big. For those that are watching the show, these slides are available. We're going to put up a QR code in just a second. There it is. Boom. Like I spoke it into being. You have access to this. Please take a look. Visit. Yeah, exactly. Where do I point? What am I doing? Before we go, David and Liam, question for you guys. If you were at a Renaissance fair, what would your costume be? What would your persona be? Would you be the knight in shining armor? Would you be the guy behind the bar that's handing out steins of beer? I think that's where I would be. What would it be if you were at a Renaissance fair?
I'm hyping up the crowd. When they have the jousting events, I'm up there getting everyone excited. I'm definitely not on the horse. I'm gonna fall off. I might die, but I'm there for the hype.
Yeah, for me, being in security, I have to go with the option with the armor, right? The knight. I'd probably go with that.
I think I would be.
Hey,
sure.
I would be the
I would be the lost person, the K-pop demon hunter, going, where am I?
I love that.
Wrong fair.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely wonderful discussion around DDoS, what customers can do to protect themselves, where things are going, and what types of attacks we're seeing. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you guys down the road. Thank you guys again.
Yeah, Brian Morgan, thank you.